All right, I think we're live. Welcome to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here, and thanks so much for tuning in and hanging out here on a Sunday night. So like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours. I'll give priority answering to anyone that is a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. There's a link in the description if you'd like to also become a member as well. And so I see we have Brian's joined in, Theodore, Angel, and Truck and Car Guy, Cars, Michelle, and Kevin. Thanks so much for joining in, everyone. And we see Truck and Car Guy says, greetings from Arizona. And Car says, hi, Matt. It's going to be another great live stream. I hope so. Thank you so much for joining in and for everyone's support here this week. And just muting my computer here. So, yeah, I see Theodore says, your acceleration videos are the best. Thank you. I'm glad you like them. It's still, I feel like one of my trademark things whenever I'm in a fun car, of course, but I enjoy doing them. And he also says, my wife wants to know, are you and your wife teenagers because you guys look so young? That's very kind of you. Nope, we're both in our 30s. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's all over the place. Sometimes I get comments, people being like, wow, this guy aged horribly. And other people think we still look pretty young. So it's the internet, there's always multiple opinions out there, but I appreciate the kind thoughts. But let me see. So, and Linda says, good evening. Love the YouTube shorts. I'm glad you like the shorts there and the little short clips as well that I've been doing. And I've been getting so much great feedback on those. I'm glad that you guys really enjoy them. And there were so many good questions from 2 live streams ago that I'm still working through those. I think I got one more of those, and then we'll start posting some of the more recent ones here. But I got a lot of great content coming. I'm really pumped. I just got a bunch of new press cars scheduled here for the spring, and I got a really good lineup. It's gonna be a good spring, I think, from an enthusiast standpoint, and just the amount of fun cars I'm gonna have. And Linda, you'll also be maybe particularly interested. I got scheduled into a Mustang EcoBoost later this spring, so I will be testing out the new EcoBoost with the supposedly all new motor. I'm very excited to try that out, and it's gonna be all kinds of good stuff here this spring. So it's gonna be good, and I'm glad. I don't know about you guys, but around here, spring has started early, so it's already nice and warm here. A lot of these days, I think it's going to be in the 60s at some points this week. It's going to be good. I'm going to be reviewing a convertible tomorrow, actually, and that'll be another fun surprise that I haven't even shared with the members yet. That I got a fun vehicle that popped up that is insanely rare in the way that it's set up and everything, and it's going to be a really cool video. So stay tuned. There's going to be some good stuff this week. I'm pumped, and glad to see everyone else joining in. SLMD's been a member for 9 months. Thank you so much for being a member for 9 months. He said, hey, Matt, which do you prefer, a Scat Pack or a Chevy SS? If you want handling, SS. If you want the most laughs, I'd say Scat Pack, just because, that thing will do a burnout. At the slightest tip in of the throttle, it just like instantly wants to light them up. Even with the wide body version, it's really hilarious. So they're both fun in their own ways. I think the SS is the more sorted, sophisticated car, but I love a good laugh as well, and the Scat Pack is just a laugh, and so I love it for that reason. And thanks so much for being a member for 9 months and for joining in, SLMD. And let me see here. So Kyle, thanks for joining in too. And he agrees about the shorts. I'm glad you guys like them. It really, I'm so happy because it was kind of, something, going out on a limb and trying something different. And I'm glad that it's gone over well so far. Sean says, I've actually made a live stream. It's been a while. Thanks for joining in, Sean. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen you in here. So thanks so much for stopping by. And Truck Car Guy says, now that you've sampled the new Hurricane Inline 6 and the new Ram, how do you feel about the new Charger supposedly getting it? I am excited. And that's what I was kind of alluding to in my review. And I was like, I'm really excited for the other Stellantis products that'll probably get this motor. It's punchy. The only thing is the sound isn't amazing. It's a Ram, though, so I wasn't really expecting them to really do any exhaust work on that. But I'm curious to see how that motor sounds when you really open it up. I don't know if anyone's put a straight pipe setup on a Wagoneer because the Wagoneer is the first thing that got that motor. But I haven't heard that motor opened up yet. So I really want to, see when someone goes crazy on the exhaust on that, how it sounds. It might not be amazing. It might be amazing. I don't know. And Dodge knows how to do a good exhaust sound. And so I'm hoping that that they, maximize that inline six and make it pretty cool. So we'll see. But I mean, as far as power goes, even just the regular one with 420 horsepower, which according to the rumors will be the base Charger, I mean, that is still an enormous improvement over the Pentastar V6 and is, just going to be amazing. So I'm pumped for that. And yeah, we'll see how long they make us wait for the 6-cylinder version. It sounds like, all the teaser images and stuff so far seem to have been the electric version. So we'll have to wait and see, what the timing is on all that stuff. But it's going to be good. Going to be good, I think, in the Charger, hopefully. And Zachary says, what are some other channels of any kind you'd like to collaborate with? I always love collaborating with any of my other fellow automotive channels that I'm friends with. Most of them, I'd say, honestly. I've been very fortunate to meet, so many of them over the years and work with them and collaborate with many of them as well. So there's so many. I mean, me and Sophion from Midline Reviews want to do more since we're only about 3 hours away from each other. That's something we've talked about is, doing an actual, collab at some point soon here. I'd love to collab more with Tommy from TFL, because me and him are like, if there's another automotive YouTuber that I feel like I am most closely aligned to personality wise, and then as far as like interest, it's me and Tommy. Like Tommy is like the version of myself that I wish I was able to achieve, because he's the one that's got all the cool, quirky, classic cars like I wish I had. He's, been doing such good. If you follow his YouTube shorts and his TikToks and stuff, he does really cool, like he finds these random, really obscure cars and, does these really cool little videos on them. And, every time me and Tommy talk, it's like we're same wavelengths, and it's like, yeah. So I'd love to collaborate with them more. Usually, they have a cameraman with them every time we're on the same media launches. So, there's usually not much opportunity to ride along with him. But I would love every time I see him at an event, we're always hanging out and talking so much and, always, hanging out all evening. And, so I'd love to do actual collabs with him because I think that'd be a lot of fun. And, I mean, there's just so many though. It was really fun riding along with Drew from Car Confections whenever we did the EV9 launch a few weeks back, and hanging out with him all day was really cool. But as far as collabs, the thing is, like, I'm not very creative sometimes. It's like coming up with cool collab ideas outside of like, let's be in each other's videos is a little bit of a challenge for me. But, it's be something, if you remember way back when we used to do what was called the Automotive Video Awards for a few years there. And it was a bunch of us YouTubers that all got together in the same weekend. We had a group of cars. We all did like reviews on everything and kind of, had time slots and swapped cars every couple of hours. And it was really a fun weekend, just hanging out with everybody and doing, a little bit more collabing than that. And we've been talking about maybe getting that back together. And I think for me, because these days I have pretty good access to press vehicles and stuff, so I wouldn't need to do reviews on a lot of this stuff. It would just be about doing comparison videos, which many of you would love to see, as well as just like collab videos of like, yeah, we got these cool cars here and we'll do content on them, but also like we just have everyone together and we can just, do fun, creative collabs, that involve cars, but aren't just like reviews. And so I think that would be kind of cool. But I mean, there's so many awesome people in this, in this little niche of YouTube that we're in here that I'd love to collaborate with most of the YouTubers out there, because they're all pretty cool, at least as far as the reviewers go. Once you get to the like lifestyle side, then it's it's a little bit more dicey in my opinion. But the car reviewers are all pretty solid people from my experience, at least. SMD says, who's Tommy? Tommy's from the Fast Lane Cart, TFL, great channel, and they've been doing stuff super long. I seem to tend to gravitate to the older channels that have been doing this as long as I have. There's a lot of newcomers that are fantastic as well. SMD says, what about Joe Rady? Absolutely, would love to collab with him. He's always usually got a videographer though, so it's another one where we don't really get a chance to ride in a car together very often. But I mean, every time I see him at an event as well, I mean, it's so great. Even Ram was a prime example. At the Ram event, it was me and him and Drew and Mason from Car Confections, and then one of the Stellantis executives, and it was just us at dinner, just having a blast, having drinks and having some yummy food and just having a good time. So I mean, it's one of those things. If it wouldn't be awkward to like film behind the scenes stuff, be like, hey, let's film our like dinner conversations. There's so much good stuff, but it's just too awkward to like point a camera in someone's face whenever we're just hanging out and having fun. But I would love, it'd be so fun to have everyone be a fly on the wall and just kind of experience the behind the scenes of, all these events and things that we do. Cause that's the best part for me. It is absolutely, since I'm so busy, I don't have a great friend network, to be totally honest, but like all of these other reviewers are really like some of my closest friends. And like, I'm very fortunate to be able to say that, whenever I go on these work trips, it's like my hangout time, my socializing time that I usually don't make the time for myself whenever I'm at home, because I'm just such a family man whenever I'm here. But whenever I'm on the road, it's a lot of fun to hang out with everybody. And let me see. So other member questions here. So Luke says, best sounding engine of all time to me is either the Mercedes 6.3 liter and the older AMGs or the Dodge 5.7 Hemi. They both sound good, but man, yeah, that older AMG motor is so good. I remember when those first came out, I had a buddy who just bought a brand new C63 when it came out with that motor, and it was so good sounding. He also had a Maserati Gran Turismo of that, naturally aspirated V8 generation. So he had like two of the best sounding cars on the planet, a very good collection. And yeah, that's another one in my mind that's really ranks up there highly, along with the F-Type and a few others. But there's so many good engines though. And SMD says, what about an M3 competition or a Hellcat Red Eye? Between those two, I haven't driven the new M3, so that's a real blind spot for me. I have no clue how a new M3 drives. I've heard good things about it, and I can kind of extrapolate a little bit based on M2 now since I've driven that. But it's just going to be different. It's just way less horsepower in the M3. It's just the Hellcat is just, it's wild, it's raw, it's actually, I've taken them around track. I've driven Hellcats hard around track. Like, they actually handle, they're great cars. It's not just this one-dimensional muscle car like a lot of people have stereotyped it as. But the M3 most likely is going to be more dynamic. They focus on handling more than Dodge does, really. And I mean, if it were me, I'd rather have the Hellcat most likely, with a few caveats. If you're like me and you're worried about safety and things like that, Hellcat's terrible in crashes and stuff. But if we're just talking driving experience, then M3 to me, I would have to assume wouldn't be as exciting as a Hellcat. But again, I've not tried it, so I cannot knock it. And thanks for joining in, Jay. It says, howdy, everyone. Linda says, my neighbor has several antique cars if you're ever in the area. Well, thank you. I appreciate the offer. And yeah, feel free to send me a message or an email, Linda, if they actually want to get the cars on the channel and they're serious about that. I'd love to, get a little more info there on what they have, and, try and do, I need to do more trips to like the Northern Virginia area, because Beth has a really close friend down there that we need to visit more than we do. And it's a really good excuse to kind of bundle it in, do a couple of reviews, hang out with her, and just, it'd be kind of a win-win. So I need to do more of that this year. And I say it every year, but I'm really going to try to get down there. So definitely send me a message, Linda, and hopefully we can work something out. And Sean says, collab with Donut. Also, I have funny ideas for collabing with regular car reviews again. That would be fun. That'd be fun to revisit. Yeah, collabing with them, because I haven't seen them in probably at this point, probably about 10 years. And it's awesome to see them still kicking and doing their thing. Donut, I honestly don't follow Donut whatsoever. And I don't really have anything against them. It's just a different type of video from what I do. And it just never really interested me too much. But they have a huge channel, so it'd be good to collab just, from a professional standpoint, I guess, but I'm sure it'd be fun for sure. And Zachary says, you and Sophian seem to vibe well. Yeah. Sophian, I'm another one I'm very grateful to say I've, been friends with for a long time. And he's fantastic. So I'd love to, do more collabs with him, and we're going to hopefully try and figure something out like that. It was actually, he started working with a few other YouTubers and stuff as well. But like, that's one of the things, like, if I couldn't do my own YouTube channel, like, Sophian would be one of the channels I'd happily like work for him, because like he just does great stuff as well. We're very, again, in tune with each other as far as, we're both kind of like walking encyclopedias on cars, and we're really good at rattling that stuff off, and we're also fairly close. So I think it'd be a very easy collaboration, since we're not too far away. And let me see. it always like reloads comments. That makes me lose my place. Jazz says, hi, GMC Acadia for 2024 is still not yet on car lots. Production to start in March per the internet. Seems kind of strange to start production of a 2024 car in March. Yeah, that does seem strange, but I know that, so if you're talking about the next generation Acadia, I believe that is a 2025. So I think that's why. And I thought I've read that a lot of that GM stuff got delayed a few months, because I think a bunch of it has been delayed. I can't remember the specifics, but there's a fair amount of delays on some of that stuff. And I think Acadia was grouped in there with Traverse, and then there's a couple others too. But obviously, like if they are building cars, they have to be 2024s starting January 1st. That's just the way that VINs work. So, there is definitely that. I mean, so I think if you're talking about the new Acadia, that's a 25. I believe they said summer. I'd have to Google it, but I feel like I saw that pop up in the news cycle here a couple of weeks ago. But if you're interested in one, I'm hoping to, cover that stuff. GMC doesn't always invite me on media drives, but I did go on the Canyon, so there's a slight chance that maybe I'll be able to go on the drive for the Acadia. We'll see. But it seems like it's a nice improvement here, so I'd like to try it out. And as somebody says, Matt Moran, the other one I've been subbed and been a member of. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. But there's lots of other great people that do these videos as well, and so it's. I'm for the first to admit that I'm not the best by any means, but I really appreciate all the support and everyone who thinks that they really like the channel. It means a lot. The Trunk Car Guy said maybe an updated collab with that dude in blue, Smurf. His 2013 Mustang GT has a lot more power and mods now. It would be fun to revisit that, because that was my first Mustang experience. And well, no, I wouldn't say my first Mustang, but that's my first extensive experience. I did briefly drive an 08 Bullet when I used to work at the car dealership when I was 18. I think I drove that, but that was basically it. So I mean, that was really my first good Mustang experience. And I mean, you watch that video, it was really funny, my reaction to that. And it was, that's one of the things that really turned me on to Mustangs. And it'd be fun to revisit that. And every once in a while, I do bump into that dude in blue on a media drive. He doesn't do very many of them, but if it's a sporty thing, I think the last one I was on with him was manual Supra and the GR Corolla, a little track thing that we did about a year and a half ago now. It's always fun catching up with him, and especially comparing notes, because me and him kind of got started around the same time, and took similar paths in the beginning, and then kind of diverged, with him going just to modded stuff and me kind of going more to the OEM side. But it's always funny to kind of just compare notes, and he's same as me. We're struggling with the same thing, where it's YouTube's shadow banned us almost, where it's subscribers have no clue that we're uploading videos anymore, and nothing gets pushed to the sub feed, and it's everything gets buried, nothing gets recommended, and so we always have a good rant talking about all that stuff with each other. So that'd be a fun one to do another collab with him for sure. Somebody says that must have been a night with Joe and the Car Confections guys. Yeah, it's always so much fun. It also helps. I mean, not everyone drinks at these things, but I'm one of the ones that certainly does, and that always makes it a little more fun, in my opinion. Not like I'm endorsing drinking if it's not for you, but that definitely makes it a little bit more fun too. I love doing those media drives. It's really nice whenever they actually work out. Some of them end up being a waste of time from a content standpoint, because they just don't get very many views a lot of the times, trying to compete with all the people that post their same exact stuff in the same embargo. But it's so much fun to go on those. And Jay says, Matt, did you miss the Lotus news going public on the New York Stock Exchange last week on Friday, though SPAC, which is a red flag? I actually did miss that. I had no clue that actually happened. And yeah, the SPAC thing, it's definitely interesting. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a red flag, but it's definitely not, it's definitely a shortcut way of doing it. And it's, definitely a little sketchier for sure with these SPACs. I do dabble in the finance world a little bit every once in a while. So it's been interesting seeing how that has become more and more popular recently, but I hadn't heard about Lotus. So thanks for the info. I will have to look into that. And Sean says, collaborate with a non-car YouTuber, discuss initial D with someone who talks about anime or a movie channel about car movies. Those are good ideas. I really need to watch Initial D someday because aside from, like seeing clips of it, I've never actually like sat down and watched it. I feel like I'd actually like it because I like Speed Racer, which was obviously earlier, like JDM anime, car stuff. But I mean, Speed Racer, like I literally would come home from school every single day and like watch that. But I love to actually sit down and watch Initial D. But I get what you mean about like a movie channel about car movies, things like that. That all would be great. I don't know anyone in any of those niches of YouTube, but I'm always open to collabing with people, and that would be cool. Yeah, if you have channels in mind, feel free to shoot me over a message, and I can try and reach out to them and see. Because I mean, collabing is definitely a great way to grow, and it's something that really helps basically everybody because it brings awareness to things that people didn't have on the radar before on both sides. So it's always beneficial. So I'm always up for that. And so yeah, great suggestions. Thanks so much for that, Sean. Trend Car Guy says, before I forget, just saw a first gen NSX on my way home earlier. It had upgraded lights, but otherwise looked pretty much stock. Really nice. Yeah, it's always a treat to see an NSX, especially when they're nicely stocked like that. All the modded ones look so good usually too. So there's no bad NSX really out there. Brianna says, I saw an i5 eDrive 40 on the road. It's nice. I actually don't think I've seen an i5 yet myself. I don't think I've seen any of the new 5 series, to be totally honest. So that's cool you saw one. I'm in the area that I live in, there's not a BMW dealer super close by, but like a lot of people drive luxury cars around here. So I'm surprised that I haven't seen one yet, but it's interesting. I didn't know they're actually on the road yet. So thanks for the info, Brianna. Cara says, what is your best guess for the powertrain in the expected compact Toyota truck? I mean, so the thing that we saw in Tokyo back in the fall, that was an electric vehicle, I believe. But, being Toyota and also being, with the way everything's going here, this year so far with everyone walking back their plans, I don't know as far as the design of that goes, how much flexibility they have platform-wise, whether that is on, something where they can't swap in a gas engine or maybe they could. I don't know. They could go either way. They could really go bold and try it with an electric thing, since it sounds like Ford's giving up on the electric Maverick for now. Chevy's giving up on their electric little small truck, if the rumors are correct. So Toyota could, maybe find a little niche there if they can actually make it compelling. Or the safer bet is Toyota does what Toyota does best, and they try and rework it to, stuff a hybrid powertrain in there and do an all-wheel drive hybrid powertrain, which Ford won't do in the Maverick, and then just print money. I think that would probably be, the best way to do it. But again, they might kind of have their hands tied depending on how far along they are in the development. If they're like, oh, well, everyone was telling us we needed to do more EVs, so let's make this an EV. And then they're like, well, crap, now what do we do? Because no one wants EVs at the current moment, Again, that's a broad generalization. There's hundreds of thousands of people still buying them every month. But if the public sentiment is like, hey, maybe this isn't the way to go in this current year, then, I feel like maybe they try and do both. We have seen we already saw the preview of like an electric Tacoma, a couple of years ago. That was actually the first look at like the new gen Tacoma before we knew it was actually like the new gen Tacoma. But so if the Tacoma has the capability to swap in an electric power plant, but it's still like a real trucky thing and has, all that, then I would assume that it goes the other way around and you can, yank out the electric powertrain and still have something workable from a gas, standpoint. But as far as, if we're going to, go through Toyota's powertrain stuff, I mean, I would almost certainly bet if it is going to be a hybrid, it'll be the 2.5 liter. That's what they're putting in everything. There's the 2.5 liter, from the Prius, 197 horsepower or 196, whatever it is. I think that would probably be what they would end up doing. And that has the capability with all-wheel drive, like we see in the Prius and the Corolla. And, again, it's nice and affordable. It's a small little, powertrain. You can fit in all kinds of small stuff. So gives you great flexibility for a truck standpoint, and 200 horsepower is enough for a compact truck if you're trying to keep it cheap. Maverick, I mean, has 250 with a turbo version, but I believe the hybrid version's, barely over 200 if I remember correctly. So I think that would be, the smart way to do it in my opinion. But I have no clue. And, that could even not happen. They could bail on that little truck idea still. I mean, I don't know. I think everyone in the car world is, as far as manufacturers goes, is like probably in a wait and see kind of thing in some cases this year, because there's obviously, like, yes, everyone wants a hybrid right now, but like, is that actually going to be a sustainable thing? Is that just the hot thing this year? Like how EVs were the hot thing for the past couple of years? Is it going to be a passing fad, or is this here to stay? So I mean, obviously Toyota's proven that hybrids are a viable thing for 2 decades now or more. But, I think, as far as what best direction to take that in, I'd say the hybrid thing's a pretty safe bet. But these days I'm like less likely to take bets on that kind of stuff, because it's like everything is in such a uncertain state as far as what's getting killed off, what's canceled, what's coming, what's not coming, what are they doing with it. It's not quite as predictable as it has been in recent years, in my opinion. And Luke says, did you ever do collabs with Saab Kyle back when he was making lots of reviews? He was actually part of the AVA, the Automotive Video Association, whenever we did those awards. So if you watch the videos, I think this is 2017 version, 2018 versions, those 2 years, he was there with us. And so we were all, again, there and doing, the videos together. But I don't think me and Kyle ever did like an actual thing outside of maybe being in a social thing together, just a little quick clip or something. But yeah, he's another one I love to collab with, and he's another one that I don't talk to very often, but every time we do talk, it's like, yep, it's a grind. And I feel even worse for him. I mean, he's got over 1 million subscribers, and he's getting the same kind of views on his reviews as I am, and he's got more than double the subs. It's like, man, YouTube has not been kind to a lot of us older channels. It's tough. But let me see here. So PK says, waiting for the next gen Traverse reviews. Yeah, so hopefully I think that might have been slightly delayed, but I don't get very many Chevy invites, and that was actually going to get better because there was some new people coming into the Chevy team here, and now one of them has moved on to a different car brand. So I'm hoping to get some more Chevy stuff here this year. And there are still some people in Chevy that I know that hopefully hook me up with an invite, but Chevy's always been kind of hit or miss as far as invites for me. So we'll see. If nothing else, I will get a Traverse as a press car eventually, but they're always usually kind of slow to send me stuff. So it'll just be a little bit delayed if I don't go on the drive there. But again, the Traverse seems like it's going to be a nice redo, and should be a great seller. Ace of Spades, thanks for joining me. Says howdy. And Mike says, do you think the HRV will eventually get a hybrid? Yeah, I think it's, Honda is saying they want to hybridize everything. So I would say it's a safe bet that pretty much everything outside of the Type R, and maybe the SI will get hybridized. It's just the way that I think they're now, especially right now, seeing everyone wants hybrids. But I mean, they've even said before, this changing shift with EVs, they were saying a year or two ago, like, we're going to electrify everything. And this is something they're really, excited about. And so I think that means that everything is going to be hybrid eventually, or having a hybrid option. And HRV is easy because it's the same bones as Civic, for the most part. So it's, at least as far as powertrains goes. So I think you see Civics getting the hybrid this summer. HRV could get it as soon as for the next model year here this fall. Maybe they'll take their time because Honda's not always the fastest at like doing what they should do, in my opinion. And they have their supplier constraints, and there's reasons behind that. But so maybe there'll be something that holds them up. But I think that it could come pretty quickly behind the Civic potentially, and that'd be great too, because it'll hopefully mean a power boost as well. Which the HRV, I mean, it's not supposed to be fast, but it could certainly use some extra power, so that would be great as well. And Luke says he's got a supercharged S550 now too. That would be a great collab for that dude in blue. Yeah, that'd be fun for sure to drive his. I mean, he's got a bunch of cool cars, so I could spend a whole week down there just reviewing his stuff, I'm sure. And let me see. SOMD says, have you ever met Evan Shanks? I don't think I have. Because he used to come to an event in Pittsburgh that I went to as well, but then I quit going to it. And I think I quit going before he started going, if I remember correctly. Yeah, there's there's some behind the scenes stuff from way back when that's just old stuff. But yeah, because that was, I think there's a thing called a Pittsburgh Hangar Party that the Cars and Coffee chapter around here does, and I think him and TJ Hunt went to that back before both of them like really blew up, and that was, I think, the first year that I didn't go, and it was a whole thing. So they were in Pittsburgh, but I didn't hang out with any of them. Not by my choice. But anyway, let me see. So I've never met him. SLD says Matt and Rady night sounding like a hangover movie. Well, I mean, Joe doesn't usually drink, I don't think. So it wasn't like, anything crazy, but it was just, a lot of fun car conversations, and Joe's just, yeah, he's just a great guy. So yeah, he deserves every bit of success. Him and Lori, his wife, are two of the hardest working people at these things. They are just like filming like crazy, but they're so efficient. They get everything done. They do a fantastic job. And they're just so genuinely nice, down to earth, like people, and he's got great stories, and it's always, yeah, every time I see Joe, I'm always so happy to see him. He's just the best. And let me see, Luke says, honestly, if Toyota made a compact pickup, I'd trade in my '07 Accord and my 20 TLX and live with that. All-wheel drive, hybrid MPG, a small bed for storage on my long trips, checks off all my boxes. Yeah, I think it'd be a really good idea, especially, I mean, Toyota has such a rich history with compact trucks, and especially now we're seeing, Tacomas are super expensive even for the cheap trims, and I think there's a massive gap and a massively underserved segment, as I've, gone on rants in past live streams, for cheap, like just cheap stuff. Like, people don't need to have 300 pound-feet of torque in a truck. They don't need to have, the Maverick has illustrated this. And so I think that, Toyota knows how to do really good small trucks. They've done them most of their history. And so, I think there could be some real lightning in a bottle there for them, and some real magic behind the scenes, hopefully, that's being worked out to really harness that heritage and that know-how and really get back to basics. I think with a nice little small truck, I mean, as much as they can get away with, obviously everyone still expects, all the newest safety tech and all the newest, infotainment and all that. So there's only so much they can do, but I really hope that they go bold with really just making it really cheap and basic, at least for the lower trims there. And Luke said Maverick Hybrid is 191 horsepower. Okay, cool. So then, yeah, Toyota could have a few more horsepower potentially, and have that all-wheel drive option, which there's been so many people that have been like, I just want a Maverick Hybrid all-wheel drive. Like, why is that not a thing? And Ford has the parts, so that's another bizarre Ford choice. But yeah, it's just a shame they're not doing it yet. Zachary says, my local Ford dealer is offering 0% financing for 72 months and thousands off to buy a Mach-E. I think the word is out that leasing is the way to go for first-gen EVs. Yeah, and that's what I've been saying all along. That's, that why with our Mach-E we did the Ford options plan, which is essentially a lease, but it's balloon finance, so we got the tax credit back when you had to actually buy to get the tax credit. But the Ford options thing is we walk away from it after 4 years. So you can either pay that final balloon payment and keep the car if you want, like a lease buyout, or we can walk away from it. And that is the key thing, is just walk away from it. Whatever it's worth, it's worth. I don't even remember what the buyout amount is. I think it's in the low 20s, which if we keep up the pace we're going at, then yeah, that'll definitely be a walk away situation for sure. But I think we're going to want to, get something newer, and just, get into another, modern vehicle once, especially because our lease on the Mach-E will be up in 2026. And with, Toyota saying their 600-mile EVs are supposedly going to be around by about 2026. And a lot of other EV stuff seems to be happening around that point in time. The NACS switchovers around that time. And that's assuming that Beth wants to stick with a Mach-E or stick with, an EV in general, which we'll see. We'll have to see how that culture continues to develop, because like just a week ago, she was just driving in the right-hand lane, just minding her own business, and some dude in a giant Super Duty flipped her off I'm assuming just because she was driving an EV, because she was like not doing anything. She was just like minding her own business, and they were flying by and just decided to flip her off. And I've heard apparently Prius owners have lived with this for decades, of people just like being aggressive to them just because of what they're driving, which is terrible. But I'm like, if it becomes a safety issue, then I don't want her in an EV if like she's going to have a target on her back. So, we will see. It's crazy. You can't just like enjoy your own vehicle without other people like being angry about it. But so anything's on the table for us. There's still a lot of great gas things we like. Plug-in hybrids, I've always said, like RAV4 Prime would have probably been one of the picks that I would have done personally if it were me. But since it was a joint decision, the Mach-E was also something I was excited about. But I love RAV4 Prime, and hopefully by that point there's a new gen RAV4 Prime maybe that might be exciting. We'll see. There's all kinds of options out there, and Beth doesn't really love like car shopping as far as, because this is what I do. So I can just sit here and all day just cross shop a million things. And I'm just, I'm like, I'm trying to think of like a simile, but it's, I'm just one of those people that just, I can go through a million different things in my head all the time. And it doesn't like stress me out, but that like stresses her out. So I'm like not discussing the Mach-E stuff for, another year or two. But once we're about a year out from, that ending, which will be next summer, not this summer, but next summer, we'll start like looking into, is there something we want to place a pre-order on? Is there something we want to, and also figure out, what the financial situation is like at that point? Because, next summer, I might not even be doing YouTube anymore. We'll see how the channel develops and what happens. So all kinds of stuff. But yeah, Mach-E's, they are definitely getting more desperate to sell those. And it's just, they're running up against the EV buyers. There's, a lot of people still want them, but they just don't want to pay 50 grand for them. And so they're like, okay, we got all this extra inventory. We gotta discount it to, get it to a price point that, wins over those people that are on the fence. Because the numbers say, apparently, according to a new research study, 50% of new car buyers are considering an EV. They're open to them. Half of all car buyers, but they're too expensive. So you lower the price and all of a sudden, ta-da, we have our new next level of growth. But obviously that's not sustainable to just be giving 10 grand off cars forever. So it's just a stopgap until, we get to, these newer, more affordable EVs, which Ford is frantically working on, and everybody else is trying to quickly, put out stuff before the Chinese do, which might be tough. We'll see. And Luke says he forgot about Saab, Kyle. Yeah, it's a lot of that stuff. A lot of people have forgotten about me too. It's the same deal. People are like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. It's just crazy how things change. Luke says, oh, I remember that you made the 2018 Mustang review, then I got mine shortly after. Nice. Luke says, I was thinking his views tanked due to switching to resto mod style vids. He's experimented with a bunch of stuff, but I think Kyle was just kind of, I think also it seemed like he was a little bit burned out with the reviews and kind of wanted to do something different. But I think it was also because like he was also seeing even 5 years ago that like he just was not getting the views that he used to get. And it was just, it was tough. There's a bunch of new competitors that came onto the scene, about 5 or so years ago. And it just, made a bunch of us just kind of drop off the map a little bit because there was just, a lot more competition. Honestly, it got harder to get views. And so, he tried something cool. And he's passionate about that stuff. And that's the best thing to do is follow your passions and hope that your audience follows and recognizes that passion and enjoys watching it as well. But it's another niche that's just, there's not a ton of people that, are on YouTube watching resto mod stuff. And so it's just another challenging thing. He's had some success with it and he's been doing fine and he's got his own shop and it seems like he's doing totally fine, but it's just a shame that, his channel hasn't, gotten the views that it should, considering he's put so much work into that, same as me and many others. We put so much work into building up these audiences over a decade or more. And then YouTube just makes an algorithm change and it all becomes worthless, and it's just, but it's their sandbox. We're just playing in it. And so you got to make the best of it and, sink or swim. Let me see. PK says, would you get a high trim mainstream car or a low trim luxury car in the same segment? That's a really good question. I think it comes down to personal preference and people. Like, if you're asking me personally, I don't need a badge. I don't need the prestige. Now, there are sometimes, cases where for example, like a luxury car, sometimes the luxury makers will put a better powertrain in the luxury version that you can't get in the regular one. Or there's features that are locked out of, the mainstream ones, but that's kind of gone by the wayside in a lot of cases now. Aside from the powertrains is still true in some cases, but as far as equipment, you can get, all the main luxury things in mainstream cars these days. So, personally, I would usually probably just be the mainstream guy and just get the mainstream thing, load it up the way you want and save yourself some money. And I've argued that, for example, with the, Lexus TX versus the Grand Highlander, you get all the same kind of stuff for the most part. The TX is nicer. Sure. If you got the disposable cash, go for it. I certainly, if I had disposable cash, I'd rather have a TX over a Grand Highlander. But if you are watching your money, it's a very similar experience for $7 grand less than the TX, so in those cases, I just go for the mainstream one myself. But again, it all comes down to personal preference and exactly what you're looking for. And Linda says Autoblog is a different kind of channel, or Autovlog is what you're talking about, but he's in Pittsburgh. Have you ever watched him? Yeah, I've crossed paths with Mike from Autovlog a bunch of times. And as far as collabing, we kind of do different types of videos. And I don't have anything against Mike, but it just I'm trying to think of how to put this. Yeah, there hasn't really been, I think, any desire on either ends to really collab there. He does his thing, I do mine. It's kind of different. He does do some reviews and stuff, but they're different. And he's kind of always just done his own thing and not trying to. Never tried to get press cars, never tried to go the traditional car reviewer route. It's just kind of him doing whatever videos are going to get content and get the views and stuff, and he's done a really good job at that, obviously, over the years. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I've had some nice encounters with him in the past, but just never had really had too much desire on either end to collab there. Just different personalities, I guess I could say. And Luke says, Joe pumps out videos like crazy. I wonder how they don't get burned out. It's just, they're the dream team. Joe and Lori, Joe Brady, just, he does film a lot. But, the difference is, if you watch one of Joe's videos and you watch one of my videos, there's a lot more editing involved in my stuff. His is pretty much one take. He puts a GoPro on the windshield there and he drives and he talks. There's a couple of cuts maybe, but there's no B-roll. There's no fancy editing there. It's just him driving and talking. And whenever he's outside of the car, he's got Lori there, holding a gimbal, and he's just talking, and it's basically like a one take of him just talking versus me. I'm like editing out, like if I take too long of a breath, I like cut half a millisecond out or whatever, and I'm like really trying to densely compact everything, which maybe is the wrong approach. But if you look at my stuff, I mean, when I talk about the interior, he just has her follow him around with the camera and he points at stuff and it's just all smooth in one take, versus me, it's like, here's a close-up of the screen, here's this and that, and I'm really trying to illustrate everything very vividly with tons of B-roll, and that's why it takes me 12 hours to edit a car review, and they can edit a video in like an hour or maybe less. Sometimes he said he's done stuff even faster than that. And so whenever you have also the two of them, Joe, I don't think very often edits. So he shows up, drives, talks, and obviously there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff with scheduling, and, I'm sure he helps out with, a lot of the other stuff as well. But, it's a lot easier when you're doing it, as a two person team and there's no editing really involved. It makes it a whole lot easier. If I didn't have to spend 12 hours editing, my life would be a lot easier. I have a lot more free time, and I'd be in a much healthier state mentally, for sure, if I didn't have to, go crazy. And that's why I've considered, kind of following the same thing. It's just tough when you don't have a cameraman, because then it would just be me like POVing everything with a GoPro. And that works for some people, but when I've dabbled in that a little bit, it hasn't done amazing for me. I just tried that with a couple of videos a couple years back and didn't really seem to do super well. So, but that's something I may try again at some point. If again, I'm trying to, sample new formats and stuff, it might be something to try for sure. But yeah, they're very hardworking people too. And there's a certain component to that, he's trying to, get the behind the scenes thing. He's trying to, he asks for things that I wouldn't even think to ask for. Like, I think he did a video with the Ram Charger. The Ram Charger, they didn't advertise like, hey, you can do a video with the Ram Charger. It was just like the Ram Charger was there, but then they're like, yeah, we'll drive that later this year. But in the meantime, like, go out and get yourself a Ram and hit the road. And so like me and everybody else went out, got ourselves a Ram and hit the road. But Joe like did, a video on the Ram Charger, and a few others did as well. But, like, he's just really good at like being like, no one else is going to really film that. I'm going to do that. And he makes it work, and he still gets everything else done he needs to do. But it's really brilliant watching him behind the scenes, and I'll see him running around, for getting things done. And and I've told him, I'm like, dude, you're one of the hardest working people, him and Lori both, at these things. And that's part of why he has all the success he has. And so, like I said, he deserves every ounce of it. Luke says, I'm going to have to zonk the fact that Rady didn't have a beer. I mean, yeah, and I don't remember but yeah, I mean, usually, yeah, they just, and honestly, like, it's not even like a late night. Like, usually, we have our fun dinner and we hang out, have a good conversation, and then they head off to bed because they get their good rest. So again, they're ready to recharge and ready to go for the next day to knock it out of the park with their videos. So, they got it down to a really good formula there. And Daniel says, I missed the techno music from your old reviews. Have you considered reusing the old intros or making similar ones? So as far as like, my like theme song that I had, that was kind of like a pre-done thing that was before the actual like techno intros for that individual car, like the little intro videos, it seems like YouTube, like the algorithm seems like it doesn't like that anymore, because you just have a lot of people that just drop off, because the second someone clicks on the video, they want to see what they clicked for. They don't want to see a big long intro and me being like, look at my cool logo and stuff. Like, they just want to see like the car that they clicked on. So that's why I ditched that. As far as doing like the whole like, little for me, it was Top Gear inspired kind of, epic music and, the different angles of the cars and stuff. That just takes way too much time. That's the reason why I was able to do those whenever I was doing one car review a week. Now I do 2 a week, so it's double the workload. And so that was one of the things I had to cut. And it's also just one of those things where it was very divisive. Obviously, music is a very subjective, personal thing. And I really like them, and I'm glad that, you did as well. And a lot of people did like them, but honestly, when I dropped those and I quit doing them, I got almost no comments about people saying they missed it. It was like, I thought like, well, maybe if people make a fuss about this, then maybe I'll bring it back. But like, no one really seemed to, be upset about it. So I was like, okay, well, that just saved me like 3 hours of editing work, because for that, it was like trying to find a song that was copyright free, that fit the vibe of the car, that I hadn't used already, that hadn't been used by another person, like that dude in blue or someone else. It was just like, it just took me hours to find music. And then, having to, now they've kind of automated some of that stuff where you can have stuff automatically edited to a beat. But, even then it was fun. And that was one of the creative outlets. I loved doing that part of it. But I actually got more negative comments than positive ones about the music choices most of the time. And that's also something that doesn't age great, because like every once in a while, someone will like stumble on one of my 10-year-old videos and be like, man, this music sucks. What is this guy? And like, they don't realize it's a 10-year-old video. And it's just people, confused about why I have like EDM stuff in these videos. Is like, because that's what everyone that was into cars listened to for the most part, 10 years ago. But it would be fun to do that. And if at some point in the future, I get an editor, or I have, just more time to burn to do more creative stuff with the videos, that would be something I'd actually do miss kind of doing those every once in a while. Again, it was a lot of work, but it was really a fun creative outlet. So I'd like to do that, but just right now, it just would take way too long. There'd be no way I could do 2 car reviews a week if I was doing the intros there. And B. Mitchell says Scout is still all in for EVs, and when they had their plant groundbreaking event last week, kept talking about affordability. We'll see. Yeah, I'm always hoping for the best for everybody and for every company. But I think the best case scenario is Scout's going to be as affordable as a Wrangler, which would honestly be a feat in and of itself if they can get a EV Wrangler competitor at the same price as a gas Wrangler is currently, which is, very expensive already. But there's no way that it's going to be under 50, I don't think, unless they are really going to be the bold ones that go with a truly bare bones thing. But I doubt it. So I don't know. I mean, again, I hope it is going to be affordable, but I think also we've seen like with the Rivian R2 coming, that's going to probably be more affordable. That's going to beat them by a couple of years, and we will see what happens. I think, if you want a truly affordable little rugged off-roader, the VinFast VF3 is going to be super exciting, and that's going to be here by the end of this year, supposedly. Obviously, that's tiny, but that's like everyone who wants a Suzuki Jimny. It's like kind of that vibe, but electric. And I think that could kind of, be, especially if you're not going to do long drives, obviously, because the battery is going to probably have 100 miles of range. But if you're, just for an around town kind of going to work and back thing, I think that'll kind of be the affordable Scout. Because they're talking about that thing being like 20 grand, like actually 20 grand for a brand new EV that, isn't, totally bland, So I mean, that could be cool. We'll see. But I'm hoping the best for Scout, but it's also, it's going to be so long. They're saying what, like 2026, I think, before anything shows up. It's just like, I mean, we'll see what happens, but they're going to have some really good tech because with, again, everyone else is doing 600-mile batteries by 2026. I mean, they have Volkswagen helping them out, but I mean, it's going to have to be really, really impressive for it to, I think, make a dent. But we'll see. I think we're going to see though in these next few years, especially if the Chinese do come in and start selling, this BYD stuff. I mean, you're going to see a lot of these startup brands and even smaller brands that are just sub brands of these giant companies are really going to struggle because the mainstream companies are going to struggle to compete. So if Ford, GM, and Tesla are shaking in their boots over this stuff, all these other little obscure startups, like forget it. Like they're all going to be, I mean, they're already on the ropes. Like Faraday Future hasn't paid their rent apparently at their LA office for several months. Like they're not even paying their rent. So like, I mean, you're going to see most of these startup EVs are going to drop off. Again, Scout has Volkswagen, in their backing, but that also could be something I could easily see go by the wayside. Everyone wants to have a Jeep in their portfolio because Jeep is the giant cash cow that everyone drools at their profit margins because people just open their wallets for $60,000 Jeeps with cloth interiors and very simple vehicles that they just decide are worth $60,000 for some reason. So everyone wants a Jeep, but I think it's going to be one of those things. Ford was able to crack it early with the Bronco, and they got lucky that they got in nice and early. But I think everyone else now trying to follow after the fact is going to probably have a very uphill battle and be nearly impossible. And SMD says, I need an LSA swap Silverado. That would be sweet. I also wouldn't mind a TBSS with a LS2. Yeah, I would love to see some more fun GM stuff. It'd be fun. I also really want to do like a Blazer SS. I want to just review one of those because they seem like a really cool package and they're kind of rare these days, especially in good shape. But I'd love to review one of those someday. And Luke says, I hope you're doing YouTube next year. If you stopped, I'd feel like an old friend dying. I know it would be sad. I mean, I think, if nothing else, I would at least hop on here, every once in a while and just do a live and get caught up with everyone. Because again, I view many of you as friends as well. It's something we've, a lot of you, we've all kind of grown up together over the past, decade, I know, for many of us. And so it's not something I would just walk away from, completely ever. But it would just be, as far as like actually doing consistent videos is, the thing if I had to, go do something else, so we'll just have to see. But Mike says, when does the EV bubble pop on price of raw materials? I mean, there's so many moving parts there as far as, how things develop, what happens. I think that, I can't remember as far as cost parity. I think Volkswagen was saying cost parity with gas could happen in the next 5 years, maybe 2028 or something. They were saying, I don't remember. So I would need to like actually do a little more research to give you an intelligent answer on that question. But I think we're seeing that obviously they're working really quickly to eliminate all of those hard to find minerals and, all the stuff that's either hard to get, problematic because of, political reasons or, just because of the sourcing issues with a lot of that stuff. I mean, they're dropping all the cobalt out of the batteries, all the, just really trying to minimize all those, tough to get minerals. And so once you have these simpler batteries, the solid state batteries are super, simple, all that kind of stuff is really going to help. And also would, make things better as far as being self-reliant and having everything be based in the US as far as battery production and all that. Those types of things will really help. I mean, there's like a huge lithium mine. I think are starting up in Arkansas, if I remember correctly, and a few others. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that they got working on that they've been working on here. So, I mean, I think that's one of those things that, again, they're investing so much money into, and as long as they continue to stay the course with that, that's just going to come down really fast. We're seeing it evolve really quickly. The battery's already evolving really fast with their tech. And so I couldn't tell you when, but I can say that, we'll see, it seems like the next generation of batteries around 2026 to 2028, roughly. Solid state stuff might be closer to early 30s. Maybe some will get it out before the 30s hit, but it's probably going to be late 20s at the best case scenario for solid state stuff. But I think that's, when we're getting into these second gen batteries with just more advanced chemistries in 2026. And then, moving on to just the really next gen stuff of these solid states in the 2030s, where I think things will really, really take off at that point when you have 5-minute recharge times, 600 plus miles of range, and the batteries are easy to produce ethically and easily, and all that. I think that's where it'll hopefully really gain some steam there and be truly affordable for everyone for most of these brands. Again, assuming the car companies are willing to not load them with a ton of crap to make them expensive still. And it's also interesting, I'm waiting to see when car companies in mass will like give up on the whole like EVs need to be luxurious and fast and just be like, hey, let's just like make them economical again. Like everyone doesn't need 400 horsepower. Like, there needs to be more 200 horsepower, even 150 horsepower EVs for the average commuter, that totally gets by fine. Look at how many cross treks are on the road with 150 horsepower. Like, obviously EVs are a little heavier, but like there needs to be more slow EVs that have, that'll increase your range hugely if they just quit making these things fast. Like, I'm an enthusiast, but like, why is every EV fast? It's stupid to me. Like, make them slow. Like, you don't need every single crazy idiot on the road having 400 horsepower. Like, make everything like slower for the mass transit stuff. Like, I think that would be the better way to go. But anyway, random tangent. I would say, we're going to see some of this stuff really come down pricing wise here in the next few years. Making It Happen says, Sub Kyle to me is the OG. He really is one of the first on there with those tours and everything. I mean, he was doing it a few years before I was even. I remember watching him, way back when, being like, I want to do that too. So he was definitely one of my inspirations too. And let me see. PK says, hot take, but I think the Grand Highlander interior looks more luxurious design-wise compared to the TX. Interesting. I mean, the Grand Highlander interior is no penalty box. It is a super nice place to be still. And Grand Highlander is great. I'd say my favorite crossover in that segment. It's just, they did such a good job of just making what people want, not what they think people should want or what they want to do, but like what just literally like focus grouping. Like, what do you want? A ton of space, an easy touchscreen, and a soft ride. Done. That's it. End of story. Like, it didn't have to be overcomplicated. Like, just leave it at that, and that's it. That's what they did, and I think that's why I got two neighbors near me that already bought them, and they're just selling like hotcakes, and they deserve every ounce of that success, because it's like everyone else is trying to reinvent the wheel and do things differently, and Toyota just went like, hey, let's make something that doesn't like offend people with the styling and just works. And it's just great. SMD says, I enjoy watching the Motor Week retro reviews. Back then, any 0 to 60 under 7 seconds was considered quick. It's funny how times have changed. It's hilarious. And I mean, some of the people who, are older here that, remember the 80s and even early 90s and stuff, it's insane how fast the average car is compared to, just not that long ago. And, it's wild. And that's why I do occasionally get a comment where people are like, oh, like my recent cross truck review, I'm saying how it really feels slow with a 10 seconds or to 60, but it's like, that would have been, pretty impressive. Yeah. Back in those Motor Week videos and stuff. And, it's just like, it's crazy how fast. And I think that's also part of why we're seeing, more accidents and, all these more problematic things on the roadways. Cause like everyone's got more power than they probably should have, to be totally honest. And it's just been this really fast evolution, which is, again, great for an enthusiast, but for the average person who knows nothing about cars, knows nothing about physics or handling dynamics, it can also not be a good thing, So it's very, very interesting. And Making It Happen says, Mike has an EF'd up personal life, stay away. Well, I mean, I know he's been going through some stuff, but I don't know I don't know behind the scenes of that. So I try not to judge any of that stuff, but it's just the Mike thing. I mean, I have nothing against him, and I wish him all the best. And I enjoy watching his videos. I love his transparency. He shows like, here's how much money I made off of this video, and it's really insightful. And it's also, it's just commendable that he's that transparent, and I really respect that. And so I mean, yeah, he's done some really good stuff, and yeah, he's always been very nice to me. Actually, it's funny. He back whenever Beth had her Fiesta, the first time I met Mike, he was working at the Ford dealership as a salesman, and I came in with her Fiesta, because Beth's Fiesta, those Fiestas, the automatics, it was a dual clutch, or maybe, yeah, it was a dual clutch. It was horrible, that Ford power shift transmission. And she had 4,000 miles on her car, and we had to have the transmission replaced. that tells you how bad it is. But so we brought it in, and Mike like jumps up from his desk, and I think he was like, "Oh, I was just watching one of your videos. Like, it's great to meet you, man. Like, how's it going?" And he, was super nice and friendly and stuff. And that was before he even did YouTube. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I want to get do a YouTube channel soon." And then he went on, and he's done these million plus view videos doing all these crazy things that no one else has the guts to do, like turning off your car in the middle of the highway, or pouring vodka in your gas tank. He just did. It's cool, and it's something that no one else is doing, and I respect that. Instead of just being a copycat that's doing what everyone else is doing, he did something different, and so I'm glad he's had some success with that. And Mike's saying, how many hours total do you usually record per review, and versus the finished product being like 20 to 25 minutes for a full review? So typically for as far as recording goes, it depends on, the type of video. So if I'm doing like a launch, drive, like for example, the Ram I just did, that I just drove it for the morning. So I, drove it for a few hours there. And then, I usually have to skip lunch or eat a quick lunch and then do my like whole stand-up thing, all the B-roll and all the interior stuff. So, typically, like for example, if I meet up with a viewer and I review their car, it's usually like a 2 to 3 hour process. I can knock out a review in about 3 hours of filming, sometimes even less. And it's just, especially with those, I'm doing a little bit of a quicker drive. It's not like an in-depth thing where I'm doing fuel economy testing and all this stuff. So for those, it's just, about an hour standing around a parking lot, filming all the exterior stuff, the interior stuff, the B-roll, and then hit the road and drive for maybe about an hour or so. The thing about reviewing cars, and if you even have test driven a lot of cars, you can probably relate, you get a pretty good feel for most cars in the first 5 to 10 minutes, especially if you're in a more dynamic situation. If you're, putting around in city traffic, or you're just cruising on the highway, maybe not so much. But if you're able to, have a few corners, and have a little bit of a chance to really kind of work the car out, you can, at least me, I can usually suss out a car in 5 or 10 minutes, be like, okay, I have 90% of my impressions already. But, to do a really good video, it is uncovering that last 5 to 10%. And that's why I love having the cars for a week with press vehicles, or even just having the vehicle for a whole day with the, media launches, because it gives me more time to live with the car. And that's where, the gremlins usually come up. Most cars, when you test drive them, there's not going to usually be anything that jumps out at you as like terrible, in the first, few minutes of a quick drive. But, when you start living with something, or you live it for a week, like I do with the press cars, that's where it's like, wow, like it's not getting the fuel economy I thought I was going to get. And that's where, you start seeing more rattles, or you're like, man, the infotainment didn't boot up super fast every time, or the heated seats take a long time to heat up, or whatever the case might be. There's those types of things that just take a little bit of extra time. So that's why, in my opinion, my, week with videos and my in-depth reviews where I have a press vehicle for a whole week are my best videos, because I have more time to digest, what I'm taking in about the vehicle, what it's like to, live with. And I think those are the ones I'm most proud of. But obviously I've done a lot of great videos of just the quick, smash and grab, let's do 2 hours and then be done kind of thing. And that I think is still really good, impression and a good representation of those cars. But, it's probably, I can't intelligently talk about the fuel economy or what it's like to live with, beyond that first test drive. But, my channel has always been about just giving people that, kind of test drive experience of, here's the things you'll notice right off the bat. Here's the things that you'll like or you won't like. And here's how the power feels and, all that. So I think, it varies, but typically I'd say 3 hours of driving for those usual things is the most, and then with the week with things, it just comes down to how much time I have to drive, which is usually the main limiting factor there. And Luke says, I watched your Camaro RS POV vid from so long ago. Nice. Yeah, that was those Camaro videos always do so well. They still get tons of views even all these years later. It's kind of crazy that the sustained interest in the 5th and 6th gen Camaros is just crazy. And Triton Cargo, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. Sorry I missed that a little bit earlier here, but thank you so much for the generous gift there. I'm glad to see everyone was able to snatch those up. Let me see, getting back to the member questions here. So Linda says, Joe, as a former teacher, knows how to talk off the top of his head and entertain. It's a real skill. Absolutely. And I think that's really given him a huge advantage. And I think that's part of why he clicks with so many people, because he is so good at conveying information. And that's something that I admire as well, because I'm very much, talking a mile a minute. I need to slow down. I need to quit using filler words. He's really good at just, concisely laying his speech out without feeling rushed, like my stuff tends to feel sometimes, and he just does a really good job. And Luke says, I'm surprised that Rady doesn't have diabetes with all the sugary stuff he talks about in his reviews. Yeah, no, he's a very healthy guy. It's great. Yeah, he's taking really good care of himself. Him and Lori are both. I mean, you have to, with the amount of work he does, again, running around and stuff. Like you can't be out of shape filming car reviews the way he does. And Dorian says, do you have a cat? If not, why not? And can you get one? Yeah, we have 2 cats. Actually, if you go back and watch the live streams that Beth and I did together a few weeks ago, she actually brought one of the cats in that wanted to come and see what we were doing. So yeah, we do have 2 Maine Coons, and they're very sweet most of the time. The one is a little sassy sometimes, it gets on my nerves, but the other one's very, very sweet. And Spy Harpy says, helped a friend buy an S2000 yesterday, did a thorough inspection, was a well-kept car, drove it revving to 9,000 RPMs. Reminds me of your reviews and how much fun you had revving this car out. Yeah, S2000 is a great car, and congrats to your friend, and good on you for helping him with getting it as well. But yeah, it's S2000 is fantastic. Hopefully they got a good price on it, because I know they've definitely gone up a bunch. But S2000 is magical, so good. I still wouldn't mind owning one someday if I could find a way to justify it. But they're so just fantastic cars. SOMD says, biggest financial regret is not buying a house back in 3rd grade before this real estate madness. Yeah, I am very thankful. This house that we bought it in 2021 when, the rates were rock bottom. And I'm like, we are never moving. Or if we're moving, we're not selling this house, because it would, it's like free money with this mortgage, So yeah, I'm very thankful we timed that the way we did. Luckily, I feel so bad for everyone. I mean, my sister's like wanting to move as well soon. It's just like, with these interest rates, it's tough. It's obviously you can refinance down the road, but I feel for everyone that's trying to, get in a new house, because they really have made it so hard. And all these giant corporations that are buying up these houses just to rent them out and stuff, it's really going to be an issue. I mean, it already is an issue, but I think it's not a good direction for the housing market for that. That's getting off the topic here, but yeah, best of luck if you're trying to get something SLMD or anyone. Trust me. I mean, even getting this house, the amount of bidding wars we had to go through, and saying, oh, we'll skip the home inspection just to try and make our offer more appealing, and it's just I don't ever want to go back to the housing market. It is a giant headache. And Luke says, best used a full-size SUV that would be reliable for a few years before it's traded. Needs to have 7+ seats, 55 to 60 grand. I was thinking Navigator or LX, most reliable, but just exploring all options. So full-size SUV, honestly, I don't have a lot of love for the LX, to be totally honest. I don't think the LX does anything better than any of the other competitors for the same money or more money. And I think LX, unless you're talking used, they're going to be a lot more expensive. So if we're talking new, I mean, most new stuff is going to be pretty reliable unless you're getting like a Land Rover, or something like that. But otherwise, I think most newer stuff. And as far as full size, sorry, I missed the first part. You said used, so that opens it up a lot. But I think my go-to thing is Tahoes and Suburbans just last forever. So that would the V8 and everything in those is probably, if you want something reliable and tons of space, that would probably be it, especially if you can get this newest gen version. They did such a great job with repackaging to make that third row more usable and stuff. So every time I'm considering all the other full-size SUVs, I'm just like, I just have a Tahoe or Suburban. Like it's usually just, that's why they sell a ton of them, because it's just like, to me, like it's kind of like the winner by default. If you're looking at the luxury stuff there with Navigator and LX, Navigator's, fine. And it's very plush and luxurious, and it seems like those EcoBoost motors hold together pretty well most of the time. So I would have confidence in that reliability as well. But If you want something luxurious though, again, I'd probably just still go Escalade. Personally, it's been several years since I drove a Navigator, so I'd probably like to revisit that if people would actually watch that review. But anything that's like giant and expensive is like horrible. Like my Wagoneer videos got like no views. All that kind of stuff is just like usually a waste of time for me to film. So I probably won't get a Navigator ever anytime soon. The LX video didn't do well either. So, but I would I'd probably just go. If you want something luxurious, I just still love the Escalade. I think that would probably be the way to go, honestly. But I mean, obviously lots of other good options out there, but to me, that would just be my pick for sure. Nathaniel, thanks for joining in. It says, hey, Matt, thanks for stopping by, Nathaniel. Good to see you back here. And Brian says, we all support you. I appreciate that. It really means a lot. And let me see. So Dorian says, which car was the worst car you ever test drove new? And you also felt bad to say it. So, I mean, I'd say in recent memory, the one that really let me down was the Z Nismo. And I mean, I made that very abundantly clear in my review if you watch that one. And I don't know, there must have been something wrong with the tires on that one, because I still keep seeing other colleagues who I really respect their opinions just like love the Z Nismo. And just for me, it was just bad. It just like, just the handling, it just had no grip. So, I mean, I gotta just assume that the tires were screwed up in some form or another. I'd like to have another go in one just to like try and give it another chance. But even if the handling is great, even if it does drive amazingly well, it's automatic only, which is a huge drop ball. And it's just too expensive. It's just, I mean, I talked about this in my review, so you can go watch that and watch the competitor comparison at the end if you want to hear all my thoughts on that again. But it's just too expensive. I'd rather have basically everything it competes with over that. It's just not compelling. And I don't know who they think is going to pay that, but it doesn't seem like very many people are. I mean, there's hardly anyone buying regular Zs, and that could be the dealer's fault partially as well, but like they're all just sitting on dealer lots. So I don't know. I mean, I like the Z styling. I'm rooting for them. I mean, they're kind of an underdog, and it's great to see someone, try and, put out a new sports car. I'm never going to complain about a new sports car ever. But Z Nismo was probably the biggest disappointment of last year for me, honestly. And let me see. And as far as feeling bad to say it, though, I mean, like there's sometimes where I'm, worried about, the grief that I'll get in the comment section, but like, I'm always like super honest, and I'm like, you know what? Like if this sucks, I'm going to say it sucks. And like, that's one of the things that I feel like there's been people that like, I've in the past, people have been like, oh, he's always positive about everything. But I feel like I've always been like pretty blunt. And like, if something sucks, I'm like, yeah, this sucks. Like, and I've always like never pulled punches, but I hope that's something that like I become more known for going forward. Because I think that there are, there's other reviewers that I think just, they might choose to not harp on something, or there's other reviewers that like, if they drive something and they don't like it, like they just won't even post a video on it. They'll just act like they never drove it, or at least they won't publicly do a review on it. They might not deny that they drove it, but they'll just be like, I'm not doing a video on this car because it's just going to be me, being pissed off the whole time. And so like, but me, like, I'm not like, if I hate my life that week in that car because it's terrible, like I'm going to do a video about it, and I'm going to be like, look, like you might love this car, everyone else might love this car, but I think it sucks. And like, it is what it is. And that's the great thing about car reviewers is we all can have different opinions. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It's just that people have different experiences and different preferences and different ways they review and ways they drive and places they drive. And there's a million different variables. So I think that's why it's great to have, a whole expanse of various opinions. You can watch everyone else's reviews and make your own decisions and your own consensus based on the info that we provide. But I think there are some that like they won't do content on something if they don't like it or if it's really bad. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to say it. And I don't ever feel bad about being honest. And Dorian says, sometimes your face is in indicating a bit of a cringe. Yeah, I know. I mean, as far as I don't know. I mean, I think there's, sometimes where like if a vehicle's really slow, I'll be like, oh, like, this isn't the best or something. But again, I'm always like, super blunt, I feel. But Vishal says, thanks for the gift, Trend Car Guy. And yeah, awesome to see that generosity there. He says, I might need to get some work done to my Lancer, otherwise it may leave Matt stranded. Yeah, I'm hoping to someday review your Lancer he offered me. He's got a really, I feel like I never see the Mitsubishi Lancers around anymore. He's got the, I think it's an 04, right? Trend Car Guy that's 04 manual Lancer. It'd be a fun, cool little quirky car to review someday. But he's all the way in Arizona, so it's going to probably be a while, if ever. I've got stuff out in the West Coast that's been waiting for me probably almost 10 years that I still haven't gotten around to. I don't even know if people even have the cars anymore because it's been so long. So I'm hoping someday, but it's just, if it's a vehicle that's privately owned, it's either I try and bundle it into some other reason why I'm out there, because otherwise just I don't make enough money on these videos to like fly to a place and, spend all that money for, to do a review that, is going to make me, not even a fraction of the airfare and hotel stays, so, but I'm hoping to get out there and do a fun little West Coast trip. It'd be fun someday if I someday had just a ton of free time to just like tour the country in the Bullet and just make a stop along the way every time, someone had a car they offered and just, spend months just kind of on the road, but, with the family and all that, it's just like unthinkable to do that at this point in time. Trenton Car Guy says, don't get me started on how many apartment buildings and warehouses they're putting up here near Phoenix. Yeah, Phoenix it's crazy how that area has just been changing. And I mean, I've been hearing about like the water shortages and stuff that been happening last year, and I mean it seems like it's kind of rough in some of those areas. So I hope everyone does okay here this coming summer in Phoenix, because it seems like it's they're just building it up a little too fast for sure. Luke says, used for sure, can't justify spending $100,000 on any full-size SUV. Totally get it. And Vishal says, will Mazda redesign the CX-5 or would carry on the current generation for 2025, considering a non-turbo one is my next car? I don't know. I was expecting the CX-5 to go the same way as the CX-3, where, CX-30 came onto the scene and then they dropped the CX-3 the next year. But CX-5 is just like still their number one seller, and for good reason. I mean, everyone around me has a CX-5. My sister has one. My next door neighbor has one. My neighbor across the street has one. Like everyone has CX-5s around me. So it's a very popular vehicle, and I think Mazda is just really nervous. And it's also one of those things, it's almost becoming like a forerunner or like Charger Challenger kind of scenario, where it's like, okay, like people don't want anything new. Like people just want the same CX-5. So if we can just have this, money printer of an old vehicle that's still fantastic, that still people really love, and they can keep the pricing lower on it because it's not a new generation. They've gotten most of the development stuff, I'm sure, paid off a while ago. It's just a money printer at that point. But if people are happy with it and it's still, competing well, then why bother, messing with it? And so I mean, they could turn it into a forerunner thing, and we could have, it could go for a 10-year run or more, as long as people keep buying it. But I think even my sister, I was actually just talking to my sister about this today. She just was at the Pittsburgh Auto Show last week, and she was checking out, some of the new cars. She just bought her CX-5 like a year and a half ago or so, I think. So she's not like looking to replace anything, but she like hopped in the new Hyundai Santa Fe. She's like, it was actually really cool. She was really impressed by it. But then she's like, the one that they were in was like 38 grand. She's like, it's really nice for 38 grand, but she's like, she paid like less than 30 for her CX-5. She got like one of the, lower mid-grade trims of it. And she's like, it has like, everything I need. And like, she couldn't justify, spending another 10 grand basically for no reason really. And I think that's really the sweet spot with the CX-5, is that it's a lot of vehicle for the money. It still is a lot of punch, more punch than most of the competitors. As far as the base engine goes, it still handles fantastically well. I think it's probably still one of my favorite handling ones in that segment. And it's just still a really good choice. And I mean, that just really goes to this, it just goes to show you how amazing the CX-5 really is. And I got scheduled in one. It's going to be a turbo, loaded signature, because they don't these press fleets, they never really like stocking anything that's lower trim. But I will be revisiting the CX-5 here this spring, because I'm also like, how does it compare now with all the newest stuff? It's been probably close to 5 years since I've been in a CX-5 as far as a review, and so I wanted to revisit that, and I'll be doing that here. But again, might not help you too much if you were looking at the non-turbo ones, but I really want to see for myself too, like is this, I just want to experience it again for myself, because it just seems like it really has some staying power and it's impressive. But as far as I don't know, I really, that one I haven't heard anything about any kind of replacement coming, and it just seems like they're content to sell it alongside CX-50, and I'm sure at some point CX-5 might go away. But I think I actually heard a rumor, I think I talked about this at some point last year, that they will just do another refresh on CX-5, and maybe, I think it was just, they're going to just keep that, like just do another heavy refresh like we're seeing with other companies possibly. But I have no clue when. I don't remember when that is. I don't know if it'll even work if you search on my channel for a weekly update with a CX-5 in it. But I feel like I talked about it at some point last year. I just don't remember. But if you just Google, next gen CX-5 rumors or something, there's got to be something out there. If it's, from a credible site, I would, kind of just, that's probably the thing that I saw last year. And that'll hopefully give you some insight as far as whether to buy now or later. But I think CX-5s, the only thing I will say about them is they seem like they depreciate a little faster than most of the competitors. So that's the only thing I would say to be on guard for. And I honestly think that, if you are, especially if you're worried about there being a newer version, maybe just go for a nice lightly used one, kind of get some of that depreciation out of the way early, and save yourself that. And then you still have basically the same car, because again, they haven't changed it much here over the past few years. And then you save yourself a good bit of money. I think honestly it's one of the best buys, especially in that segment, as far as just on the used market. You can get a really nice one for low to mid 20s. I mean, if like Beth wanted to downgrade from her Mach-E and we wanted to, just cut back and get something a little more affordable for her, like, yeah, that's what I'd get her, like just a, regular CX-5, mid-grade trim, mid 20s, end of story. Like that, I wouldn't even need to think about it. Like that would be exactly what we would do. So highly recommend the CX-5. Hopefully it helps you a little bit there, Vishal. And Truck and Car Guy says Tahoe and Suburbans are really good. They've proven themselves for decades. Absolutely. That's part of why I think it's just always a solid recommendation. And Truck and Car Guy says it's an 03 Lancer. Okay, I was off by 1 year, so close. But yeah, those were fun. I remember them trying to market that alongside, the Too Fast, Too Furious and stuff back in the day. And it was like, it's a Lancer, but it's like, it's not the Evo, and it's a totally different car. But it was, they were really trying to push it back then, I remember. Luke says, would it make sense using Turo to rent newer cars and make a review on it, or is that pointless? No, I mean, that's how I started off, is doing some rental cars. And I did do some Zip cars back in the day. I don't know if they're even still around, but that was like a thing where you could rent a car hourly. And I did my C300 review that way, the early C300. The Ford Focus was the Zip car. So I've done those in the past. As far as right now, I mean, I honestly haven't even looked at the Turo in Pittsburgh. There's not a ton of selection. That could make sense if there was something that I really wanted to review and I couldn't get my hands on anywhere else. But I have so many people that have offered me cars all over the country, and even some that are like local here in Pittsburgh, that I'll be hopefully reviewing this coming month. But I have so many opportunities that I'm usually not hurting. I'm never like, oh no, what am I going to review? Like there's always usually something I can do, so that I don't need to pay, especially again, because the videos don't make much money. It probably would be a losing game, at least for the first few months until the video started to maybe be profitable. So it's just something I haven't really entertained, honestly, but it's a good point. I should probably just look up Pittsburgh Turo and see if there's anything interesting out there that would be worth doing, but it would have to really be like a home run for me to think that it would be worthwhile to, pay the money, because they're not cheap for Turos typically. They're not super affordable. So it would have to be something I'd have a pretty strong conviction on. And Joe says, what are some of your favorite countries / places internationally that you've been to? The UK is absolutely my favorite. I loved the UK, and maybe it's all the years of watching Top Gear and stuff. But Beth and I were fortunate enough to be able to go back in 2018. She had a friend that lived in the UK at the time, in Nottingham, for anyone who's familiar, and so that was so fun. I mean, I don't know. I love the UK and the way that they've just I don't know. I don't know. I just really liked it. And it was really fun. We had a mini press vehicle. So we had the really quintessential British experience, and drove that mini all over the UK. And we went all the way up to Liverpool and, down to London and everywhere in between there in Nottingham and stuff. And it was just really, really, really fun. Also really fun driving in a place on the other side of the road, and your right-hand drive and all that it was a fun switch as an enthusiast. So that was cool. And then otherwise, I was able to go to the Geneva Auto Show about 13 years ago now at this point, and went to San Agata Bolognese, so went to the Lamborghini factory, and, went to Maranello and got to, go around there. That was really cool. And I can't say anything yet, specifically, so I'm sorry this is going to be vague and beating around the bush right now. But there will be an international thing here coming up eventually that I'm excited to be doing. So stay tuned for that. I can't say anything much, but I'm very, very, very excited for something coming up. So, but anyway, those are probably my favorite places I've been to. UK and Italy were really cool. Also been to France. France was really cool too. But yeah, I think for me, UK is still my favorite. I really, though, as far as international places, I desperately wanted to go to Japan. Japan is like my number one place I've basically my entire life wanted to go to and haven't been yet. And that is I'm hell-bent on getting to Japan at some point, in the not too distant future, hopefully, because man, I love everything about Japan. The culture, the cars, the food, just everything is if I had to move, out of the country, I'd probably just end up going to Japan, because it just seems like it's such an amazing place. I have to learn Japanese, but aside from that, it would be pretty amazing, I think. And Vishal says the Select Trim CX-5 is really well equipped for the price, which is why it caught my attention. I'd love a turbo model, but my wallet says otherwise. Totally agree. And I mean, the turbo is fine, but you don't really need it. The regular one is so punchy, and it does a great job with what it has to work with. And yeah, Select Trim really makes a ton of sense. I think that's actually what my sister has. She doesn't have a base one, but she didn't want to pay extra for the moonroof and the power tailgate. So she's got probably one of those, lower trims there. But she loves it. It's great. It's been great to her. Dorian says, how is the CX-5 on a ski trip type deal? I like it a lot more than a Subaru Crosstrek, but that Crosstrek has so much street cred for that terrain. How is it maybe winter performance tires? So yeah, my sister just ran all seasons on it, and she doesn't really do any kind of outdoorsy stuff. But Mazda's all-wheel drive system is really good, especially, I believe a couple of years ago, they added the off-road mode that kind of allows you to have a little bit more slip and all that. Now, as far as ground clearance goes, I think Crosstrek's still going to be the better winner there. And Crosstrek's a little smaller, since it's, again, just a subcompact hatchback that they gave extra ground clearance to, versus the CX-5 being an actual compact. It's a class up and a real SUV, or a real crossover, but it's a little bit more just focused on the actual SUV mission versus the Crosstrek. But Crosstrek's like a little mountain goat. That thing, it can just go anywhere, and it just got way more ground clearance than most of the other competitors. So, I mean, Crosstrek has an appeal. It's just to me, it's just kind of underwhelming in most of the other ways. But if you're someone who needs that ground clearance and that rugged vibe, the Crosstrek's a great little thing to beat up on whenever you're off the beaten path there. Luke says, what is your preferred car shopping site? I seem to use all of them, or recently trying to use Auto Tempest. I heard you like cars and bits. Definitely not. So as far as my favorite site, Auto Tempest is really good, and I partnered with them several years ago. I'm not sponsored currently, so I mean, I can say that Auto Tempest is really good if you are if you're trying to find a car that's really hard to find or where there aren't a ton of listings. But as far as ease of use, I really like Auto Trader. Again, not sponsored or anything, but Auto Trader just like is easy with the way the filtering is set up. And the presentation, it's a little less cluttered, a little easier to just at a quick glance. Like if I find myself wanting to look up used prices for something, like my first instinct is to go to Auto Trader, pull it up, and it's really easy to, there's a quick little box there on the side. You can say, I want to make sure it's, clean Carfax. I want to make sure that it's, a manual or whatever. And they do a really good job typically with just the filtering and sorting so that I'm not looking at cars that don't fit my criteria. So I really like Auto Trader personally. I think, I don't use any of the others, honestly. Most of the time it's just always Auto Trader. But I mean, they don't always have everything. So that's why, like, if you want to, usually, like, if I was really serious, I'd look on Auto Trader, see what they have, and then I'd probably run an Auto Tempest search after that to see if there's any on the other sites that I missed that fell through the cracks. And that way I would have full confidence that I've seen everything, because Auto Tempest pulls from everywhere, which is what's great about that. It's just, again, I think the presentation to me isn't always the best, and it's a little bit slower to tweak things a little bit. So, but I think, that's the way that I'd go about it if you're, searching online for cars. And Luigi, thank you so much for the very generous super chat. I appreciate it. And I don't see any question. Okay, I see you have your question there right above it. So he says, hi, Matt, I own a 2020 Bullet. We'll be purchasing a Whipple cut down, purchasing a Whipple cut down the quarter mile time. Absolutely. Supercharger will definitely help. You're probably going to want to get some stickier tires to fully utilize that extra power. But yeah, they're great. I actually did a quick drive video in a supercharged Bullet. If you search my name and supercharged Bullet, it should come up. And you can see my impressions behind the wheel of a supercharged Bullet. It's fun. And if you're someone who's into, wanting that kind of power, it's great. Obviously there's different ways to, package, that, and different people do superchargers differently. So they're not always going to be the same kind of tuning, the same kind of, way that they go about it, but it's fun for sure. And, definitely will help with your quarter mile times. Congrats on having a Bullet as well. Hope you're enjoying yours as much as I'm enjoying mine. And thanks again for the super chat there. And he says, I saw the video, many smiles. Okay, yeah. So then it's definitely fun. So definitely will help. I would just say make sure you do all the supporting stuff as well. It's like tires. Make sure that you get the stop the hop kit that I think Steeda has to make sure that you don't get any kind of looseness there from the rear end as far as putting the power down really well. You should be good to go. Should definitely help your quarter mile times for sure. Best of luck with the racing as well. And Ben, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, do you think you'd ever get an older truck as a third vehicle to have for hauling and home improvement? Personally, no. I'm not much of a truck guy, and I'm also not much of a hauling or home improvement guy either. So for me, no, personally, I wouldn't. I know it could certainly make sense for people that do that sort of thing. But yeah, for me, I'm not handy enough. So no, and we only have two car garage. And if I was going to add a car to sit outside, I'd probably want to like add a Miata or something like a convertible or, something else that's fun. I have zero interest in trucks, to be totally honest. I respect them for what they can do and all that, but zero interest, and honestly would have zero use for one. It's nice every once in a while having a press truck. If I have, a press vehicle that's a truck and, I need to haul something for someone, I'm like, hey, I have a truck this week, let me know if you need anything moved. But aside from that, I have no use for one. But I feel like trucks are so expensive these days too, even old ones. It seems like they're just gone up in price so much. But thank you so much for the super chat, Ben. And let me see. James says, hi, Matt, liked the hidden gem videos that you have previously done. What are some other hidden gems on the used market that you've seen? So there's a bunch of cool stuff. I mean, it comes down to, again, what exactly you're looking for. I still think, like I talked about in my hidden gem video, the Alfa Romeo Giulia is still so cheap. And it's, I think a lot of yes, some of them can be problematic. Just got to look at the Carfax. I think a lot of them, though, are very solid. And, if you look on owner forums for Giulias, most of them are mostly pretty good. But anyway, I won't go on a rant about the Giulia. But other than that, I mean, it's impressive to see like Lincoln Navigators or Lincoln Continentals have come down pretty quickly in value. Cadillac XT6 or Cadillac CT6. I don't know why I keep saying the SUV versions. The Cadillac CT6 also has dropped really fast. And there's a lot of car for mid 20s. If you go for one of those lower trims, so with some miles on them, it's a really nice car for that kind of money. Other hidden gems I've seen recently. I just talked about this a few weeks ago, but Mazda 3 turbo hatches have dropped really quick. Like they're like $2 or $3 grand more expensive than like a manual non-turbo Mazda 3 hatch. It's kind of crazy. I mean, you can get one like a turbo Mazda 3 hatch with like, less than 30,000 miles for like 23 grand or something like that. 24, 25 maybe for a really nice one. I mean, for a car that was 35 grand like 2 or 3 years ago, that's got 320 pound-feet of torque. Yeah, it's automatic only, and it's not super sporty with the handling setup, but I think that car is, a set of wider wheels and tires that are grippier and a few little suspension mods away from like actually being a really potent, like hot hatch, to be honest. And the 6-speed auto, yeah, it's old, but like it doesn't annoy you. So like the motor's got enough power to like make that feel punchy all the time. And so like if I was going to do another hidden gem video, it'd probably be on the Mazda 3 turbos because they are like, they've come down so fast. I don't know why Mazdas depreciate so fast, but they are fantastic used buys because they're reliable and they seem to hold up really well. And they're just really a lot of car for the money on the used market. So that's probably one of the top ones. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's any other hidden gems that are jumping out at me currently. I mean, it is also impressive though, like, the amount of car you can get with, like, I just did my video on the 2020 BMW 330i. And that's one of the reasons why I did that review. Cause I'm like, everyone's burned out about expensive vehicles, but you can get like a, 3 or 4 year old BMW 3 Series with pretty low miles. It's really nice. It's punchy and quick, almost 300 pound-feet of torque. And it's, 30 grand or less. And, I really think the used market is the solution for a lot of people that are groaning at all these, rising new car prices, as am I. Just forget about new cars, which, I mean, I review new cars. This is not helping my business here, but, just this is why I'm doing more used stuff this year, because the used market is where it's at right now. I mean, because we've finally gotten some depreciation back there, like we've been missing in the past few years. And it's just, that's the solution, and that's really the way to send the message to people is quit buying new cars. If everyone doesn't want to see $50,000 new cars, then quit buying them and, go buy the $30,000 3 Series, go buy the, $23,000 Mazda 3 or whatever. And, obviously lots of people are, but I think, it's just like the markups. If people keep paying, then they're going to keep raising them as far as they can. It's one of those things if they got you, then they're going to keep on going. And we've seen this even in the past few years here with, a lot of these things. Inflation has definitely driven up the prices of some stuff. And there's some legitimate inflation there, but there's also a lot of price gouging that's been happening under the guise of inflation. And that's something that, we've seen in various sectors and basically every industry, unfortunately. But, I think there's still also some of that also happening in the car world a little bit as well. And so, best way to fight back is, cut out the new stuff and just go used, But let me see. B. Mitchell says, just stay away from the GMT 800 era, Suburban Tahoe, Denali, Silverado Sierras. The LS under the hood will outlast the garbage brakes and shift cables. Okay, good to know. I don't remember that generation, but yeah, I know my one of my friends, my best friends, his dad had, I think he might still actually have it. He's got a Suburban that's got, and it's like the early 2000s generation or late 90s, those ones, like, I mean, he'd swapped the engine once, but I mean, that thing's got over 300 or 400,000 miles. And otherwise, I mean, it's holding up and it's just like, those things are just workhorses. It's impressive. Let me see. Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships there. Really appreciate it. Happy to see everyone able to snatch those up as well. Thank you, Kyle, once again for your generosity every week. I'm sure everyone, appreciates it. I know I certainly do as well. Let me see. So Nathaniel says, Matt, I know you know when the Chrysler EV is coming. Spill it, please, please. It's killing me. I mean, I was on the virtual reveal for the Halison, or what do they call that? I mispronounced the name, but that little concept thing they just came out with a week or two ago, and people asked them like, when is the actual production thing coming for that crossover or whatever, and I believe they said, I mean, I don't have any inside knowledge, but I mean, it was just, and other people were reporting on this from that presentation, but I believe they said it's coming next year, right? I think that was what they said. I think the most recent thing I saw is it'll be based on the same platform or same, like very closely related to the Jeep Wagoneer S. Obviously, they're all going to be on the Stella, platform for these EVs, but I think it's going to be pretty similar to the Wagoneer S, which to me sounds like it's going to be expensive. Which, I mean, best of luck to them, but I think they really need like a Mach-E Blazer competitor, and Wagoneer S is talking about 600 horsepower and all this stuff. And I mean, obviously there's high horsepower versions of the Mach-E and the Blazer, but I'm hoping that, this new Chrysler EV truly comes in as like an affordable, relatively speaking, at least competitively priced EV. But I wish I knew more, Nathaniel, but I don't. So, we'll see. I think Chrysler, they're still just plucking along with the Pacifica. They said there's going to be a refresh for Pacifica coming again. And in the meantime, Chrysler's going to kind of sit in the background still while, Dodge has their stuff, Ram has their stuff. Those are going to be the ones here this year. And I think Chrysler's going to be on the sidelines, honestly. Luke says he wants to travel to Norway. I'd love to travel to Norway too. Norway would be really fun, especially right now, because obviously, again, different cultures, different, needs and wants, but Norway's, I think it currently 70% of all new car sales are EVs, so it'd kind of be like a fun glimpse into what the future might be like here for the rest of the world. Just seeing how it works there, which, by the way, Norway is pretty cold, and yet they've somehow managed to make all their EVs charge in the winter with 70% of new car sales. And it doesn't seem like there's this massive problem like everyone's been talking about Chicago and stuff. So it'd be interesting to just see what it's like there. And I'd love to see if there's any good, like especially English speaking, or just anyone who has really good subtitles on a, Norwegian, like, vlog video of like, here's what it's like to live with an EV in Norway. It'd be kind of interesting, but Norway just seems like a beautiful place too. So it'd be great for that reason as well. So I'm right with you there, Luke. I think Beth and I, especially since Beth is Swedish, I think we'd both love to just do a tour of all of those Nordic countries and just go through all of them, and I think this be a lot of fun because they all seem so cool. Nathaniel says yes, owners always prove Chrysler's reliability. Almost 2,000 responses for my poll on Grand Cherokee on Facebook versus Consumer Reports having 300 max. The poll overwhelmingly voted good on the Grand Cherokee. And that's great. Yeah, and like we've talked about before, Nathaniel. Yeah, Chrysler definitely does have some solid stuff that does last a good long while, and it's great to see that Grand Cherokees are holding up well for most people. And B. Mitchell said 1988 to 2000 GMT 400. On the other hand, is a vehicular cockroach. 2000 GMT 400. My typo. You just can't kill them. Okay, yeah, they're. Well, it's good to know, and this is the kind of stuff. I mean, I'm sure there's other experts for these different niches of vehicles, but that'd be great info to put out there, in a channel and be like, here's the things to look out for with the Tahoes and the Suburbans. And I'm sure again someone's probably already done that, but if not, there you go, B. Mitchell. Do your own little YouTube channel and highlight all the knowledge you have. Jazz says, Beth is Swedish. Should we speak Swedish? She does not speak. She doesn't speak Swedish or anything, and she's never even been there. Just her descendants from a couple generations ago, are from Sweden there. So, and Vishal says, my friend has a 2018 XSE V6 Camry in ruby flare red. Gotten to drive it a few times and really impressed how well it drove, to be honest. Shame the V6 is going away now. It'll be hard to replace. Yeah, we will see. I'm curious to, test out the revised hybrid here in the new Camry, in a few months. And as far as the V6, it was another one of those things. I mean, maybe Toyota didn't build a ton of them. I don't know, but the take rate was just, I think they said 7%, like 7% of people bought a V6 Camry. So, and that's not even just XSEs or TRDs. That's like everything, and it's tough. It's tough to justify if people aren't going to buy them. And maybe it's just that people couldn't find them. I don't know. But, it's just, that's how car companies make these decisions. And, they see that kind of stuff. And also, I mean, they were just phasing out the V6 in general from everything in Toyota. So that was a foregone conclusion. Even if people loved it, it seems like that was just something they wanted to do for emissions anyway. So, it is what it is, but I'm hoping the hybrid will be good in the new one here, and I'm hoping we see a new TRD or GR Camry or something at some point to, satisfy those that want 300 horsepower. Hopefully that'll be something that comes in at some point later on here. Luke said, "Well, just watch the supercharged bullet video again, and the crackles sound so nice." Yeah, I mean, regular bullets sound great too, but the supercharger there, it's even a little bit feistier with that too, and I think that one had for sure. I see Ben also says, do you think the Toyota tax is justified or Toyota's overpriced? I think that comes down to what your priorities are. I think if you are someone who highly values reliability and that peace of mind, then I think that, the Toyota tax is totally justified. I mean, it's like anything. It's the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I think that's, a prime case of that. And for everyone's got different risk profiles, different patience levels for what they want to deal with in a car. And if you want to just not worry about it, then paying that premium for a Toyota. I mean, again, not to say that other companies are unreliable. Obviously there's lots of very reliable vehicles for other companies. You don't have to get a Toyota to have reliability, but it's usually a pretty easy, safe bet to just have as a blanket statement and not have to think too much about like which model year of this Suburban or the Tahoe or which one of these and that. It's just like, I mean, obviously Toyota has had some duds too, but it's a little bit of an easier, you're shooting fish in a barrel a little bit easier with the Toyota versus some of the other companies. But yeah, so I do think it's justified. I think, on top of, and I don't know how much of this, I think that, the way that they engineer vehicles, knowing people expect that out of them. Now, whether they over engineer stuff as much as maybe they used to, I don't know. I haven't really, picked the brains of the Toyota engineers recently, and that's something I should probably, be an interesting thing to bring up with them. I'll be doing a Toyota event here in a couple of months, and maybe that'll be something I'll, try and dig a little bit more into if I get a chance. But I think it is, worthwhile if you are someone who values that, and it's clearly a lot of people do, and that's why they are still one of the number one sellers out there for basically all segments. And I think it's, people seem to really love them, and I can totally see why. Let me see. So, Trent Carguy says, I find it funny that a coworker of mine happens to have 3 Toyotas, a Cressida, a Scion TC, and his daily Lexus LS 430. Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure they never have any issues with any of them. Probably they're probably all really solid. Iconic GT350 says, do you think there will be a special Super with more power? Absolutely. It's currently been photograph testing at the Nürburgring. It's going to probably be a GRMN version is what they're going to call it, like they do with the top versions of those Toyota performance vehicles. How much more power remains to be seen. There's been rumors all over the place as far as what BMW will let them have access to, whether they give them, the M2 tune of that motor, it's, the S58 versus the B58, if that's what they end up doing, or, how they play that, if it's going to get the M3's tune, a little bit more power there. There's all kinds of, it's just going to come down to, what BMW is willing to, give them as a hand-me-down pretty much. But I think there's definitely going to be something with more power. How much more remains to be seen, but there will definitely be a hotter Super coming, it seems, especially because we're getting close to the end of that car's life cycle, I think. And so I think, they're going to probably want to send it out. But I mean, it's been photographed on the Nürburgring with, just a camo wrap on it. It looks like it's got some tweaks to the brakes. It's going to have different wheels. It's going to have different aero. It's got like canards in the front and stuff from what I remember. And so there's something coming. I mean, sometimes, they just do handling stuff and don't touch the engine. So I guess there's a possibility of that, but I feel like there's a good chance it's going to get more power. I don't know when that's coming. I think I heard that maybe that could be something that happens this year just based on the rumor mills. Again, no insider info. But that, based on, because I think 2019 is when they launched, because 2020 was the first model year, right? So we're going to be coming up on 2025 model year here, pretty soon. So, usually 5 years is a typical kind of product cycle. I mean, Toyota, I guess, usually bucks that trend a little bit, but I wouldn't expect Supra to live on much longer, to be honest. I don't want to see it go away, but I wouldn't be super surprised if we start hearing about it. I think, being phased out, especially if Z4 is kind of on the way out eventually here soon too. So I wouldn't expect it to last too much longer, but I think they will send it out with a bang, hopefully. Rafi says, our family has been leasing Camrys for the last 15 years. With COVID shortages, we bought our 2019. Nice. Well, yeah, I mean, Camrys are great, and people love them for a reason too. And yeah, like I said, I'm excited to try out the new one here soon. And Michelle says, what are some common cars from 10 to 15 years ago that are a rare sight now? I saw a Plymouth Breeze in mint condition a few days ago and freaked out because I haven't seen one in years. It's so funny how, like, I'm the same way. I'm glad I'm not the only one who, like, I see some rare, bizarre thing, and I get more excited about that than I do about, like, oh, look, there's another McLaren 720S or something. It's like, I don't know. Most of the exotics, I'm kind of just like, I kind of shrug off a lot of that stuff now. But like, yeah, like saying a Plymouth Breeze would get me excited too. There was something weird. I can't remember what it was. I saw something recently. It was like in the past week or two, but I can't see if I can remember what it was. It was cool too. It was some like weird 80s thing that I was like, man, and it was also in like pristine shape. And I'm like, I cannot believe that this thing has not been rusted to hell and back at this point. Like, it just was like really mint. I can't remember what it was. Maybe it'll come to me. But what I did see actually today, it's a different sighting, but I just remembered it. Today I saw a first gen MR2. It was a white one in pretty good shape, and I was like, holy crap, it's an MR2. Like, because that's when is the last time you saw a first gen MR2? Like, that's a really rare car that I guess just don't see very often these days, at least around here. And so that was pretty exciting. I mean, that wasn't really a common car. I think they were always pretty special, but as far as common stuff, yeah, every once in a while I'll see like a neon, which I never see much of anymore. I saw a PT Cruiser actually for the first time in a while a couple of weeks ago, and that was kind of fun. Like, oh, look, like those things. I still always like the PT Cruisers. I had a soft spot for those. But yeah, there was something else that was quirky in 80s. Like, I can't remember what it was, but every once in a while, it's always a thrill seeing that stuff. And Kyle says, an article from Forbes came up on my feed. Toyota will make a 4-door GR86 with a 350 horsepower gasoline hybrid for 2026. Is that true? That doesn't sound true to me. That sounds pretty far-fetched. I would love to see it. There was a rumor a few years back that there was going to be a 4-door GR86. My memory is foggy on it, but I believe that was officially like debunked by a Toyota engineer or something who was like, yeah, we were considering it and working on it, but then it didn't happen. I believe I remember reading that, but I remember I did report on a 4-door GR86 a year or two ago, maybe. I don't think that's happening. If I were betting on it, I would say absolutely not, especially at 350 horsepower. You look at what Toyota does currently with gas hybrid stuff. If you're talking a true GR86 with the engine that low, it's got to be a Boxer still, because there's no way you can fit anything other than a Boxer under the hood of that vehicle without Toyota needing to just completely start from scratch. I've talked to Toyota executives about this already in the past. They're like, even the turbo for them was just like a non-starter. Like, they just like, to meet their internal quality requirements for visibility, for safety, for packaging and everything, like they just like, we can't, they can't even do a turbo, so if you're talking 228 horsepower from the regular motor, even if you do some hot rodding on it, to boost the NA power of that, okay, we call it 250 to be generous, and then you add another 100 horsepower. I think that the rumor I was seeing was it was going to be all-wheel drive as well. And I think actually, if I remember correctly, it was for the last generation they were considering it. Oh, that's what it was. So, sorry, it's all coming back to me. Maybe there is something new coming down the pipeline, but they did actually, I talked about this a few months ago now. Toyota's Cal State, their design studio that they have there in California, they did a shooting brake FT86, that FRS GT86 thing, shooting brake 4-door that was still going to be rear-wheel drive, and they showed pictures of it. Like, they had a full-blown, full-sized model that would look like, like an actual real car, not like a clay model. It was a real painted thing. And they got it out in the daylight, and they were doing focus groups on it and stuff. And it was getting close to, being finalized, and then they canceled it. Maybe they are open to doing the same thing and trying it again this time. But I think if they try it for the last gen and it didn't pass all the green lights they needed to get it to production, then it makes me think that they're not going to try again. And again, 350 horsepower also is just a stretch, because I don't know if there's anything that Toyota has that has 100 horsepower in the rear motor. Maybe with the what's it called? The direct force, rear thing they have, like the Grand Highlander, maybe that for those top ones. I don't know if that would even fit packaging wise under the front there, because that's where it would have to be if you want to have it all-wheel drive. I think that the packaging, there's no way you can do that with that boxer motor. So it's just, that sounds very unlikely to me. I don't think there's any way that's possible, unless they just put the GR86 badge on something else that's completely different and bigger and higher and all that. But yeah, I don't think that's possible, to be totally honest. I'd love to see something like that. That sounds great. But I don't think that's even, I'm trying to piece it together in my brain with what I know about Toyota and the parts bin that they have and how they would do stuff. And I don't think there's any way they could do it, especially if they wanted to keep it under 50 grand. Let me see. Rafi says, I've been seeing Ford Flexes recently. What a cool SUV. That is a rare one. Yeah, that used to be more common. Although they were always kind of rare, I think. But yeah, I thought Ford Flex was great. And it seemed like it had a little bit of a cult following. And actually, one of Beth's neighbors in her old neighborhood before we got married, they had a Flex and loved it. And it seemed like it lasted her a long time too. I think she still had it just up until a year or two ago. But Flexes are great. Trent Car Guy says, I've seen a few Flexes and a few Magnums aside from my own. One even parked behind me once when I was on a lunch break. That's cool. Yeah, Magnums, I don't even know when the last time I saw a Magnum was around here, honestly. Maybe at a car show a year or two ago, but it's been super rare around here. And Nathaniel says, same here in Detroit. I see a fair share of Neons, a lot of PTs, a lot of Aspens, 300Ms, Concords, 2001 Sebrings, and Stratus. That's great. All common here, he says. I'm impressed, too, with all the salt that Detroit gets, too, that they haven't all rusted away. Because, that's not a knock on FCA. It's just, stuff rust over that kind of a time period. That's why, even at Pittsburgh, it's just brutal. They all get, just everything gets torn to pieces here with all the salt. Let me see. Ben says, I saw a Buick Terrazza last week and had to smile. Buick's failed attempt to get into the Lexus space in the mid-2000s. Was that the minivan that Buick did? Or is that something else? I can't remember. But that'd be a rare one for sure. I think, I saw a Saturn Relay, I think, a little while ago, which was their, minivan there they had. B. Mitchell said, Truck and Car Guy, I may be jaded on the subject, but I always enjoy going to Arizona every January, as you'll see stuff that's decades dead down there running around. We're talking 1960s Cadillacs, etc. Nice. Yeah, it is fun. I've noticed the same thing when I'm out west. You'll see some really old stuff that's just, it's not like a classic that's been restored. They're just still driving it. It's great. Truck and Car Guy says, I see the occasional DSM in varying states of repair. Yeah, I know. Every once in a while, I will see an Eclipse, like the second-gen Eclipse, and it always still makes me excited to see one of those out and about. But they are definitely very rare these days. And Nathaniel says, I see a fair amount of first-gen Durangos as well. Do you ever see any? They're very rare. It's been a long time since I saw a first-gen Durango. I don't even see second-gen Durangos. I only see the current-gen Durangos around here, typically. It also depends. Where I'm at is kind of, most people have newer cars around where I'm at anyway, so I don't see a ton of super old stuff typically, and I don't really usually venture out of my little suburban bubble very often. So I don't really see too much of other parts of Pittsburgh and what they drive typically, but But yeah, it seems like, yeah, at least me, I haven't seen a first-gen Durango in years, probably at this point. Trend Car Guy says, I love seeing the vintage cars still on the road, especially the classic lowriders and stuff. Yeah, that would, I'm sure that's got to be fun to see. Nathaniel says, I see a ton of flexes too. It's crazy how some states see tons of one car, but never seen in other states. Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the weather for sure. B. Mitchell says, my Ford dealer was probably the #1 fanboy for flexes. Always sold several dozen a year in a smaller town. He still gets a few on his used lot still today. Having Volvo bones, they hold up well. Yeah, and I mean, they had like a little refrigerator in them, and it was 3 rows and stuff. I mean, the Flex was the 2024 Santa Fe from Hyundai before 20 years before it even it was a thing, and now people are loving that idea. And that honestly, I think it looks a lot like the Flex, but it's I think it had some staying power. I'm really sad that Ford didn't decide to stick with that. I mean, again, sales were crappy. Can't argue with it, I guess, but it's a shame that it wasn't a bigger hit. I think the Flex was kind of one of the like ahead of its time kind of vehicles where it's just the timing is not right, but it's a great idea. It's just not the right vehicle for the right time. And yeah, Luke's taking the words right out of my mouth there with Santa Fe being a comeback of that. I think it really is. Orphe says, is Durango dead or not? Just not yet. No, Durango is still around, and they are, I believe whenever they had the union contracts here at the end of the year that came out, there was some details that were leaked out there. Durango is getting a new generation based on the next gen Grand Cherokee, I believe, which is I think actually coming here in 2026. Durango is going to stick it out in its current form until then. I think what we will see, this isn't confirmed, and I don't even know if I even read a report about this yet, but I think, the logical conclusion here is that, like everything else, the Durango can't keep the V8 around. So we will see most likely the Hurricane motors going to the Durango here for the last, for 2025 and 2026 is my guess. I don't think that's, been confirmed. I don't even know if anyone's speculating that yet, but that would be, again, just my going out on a limb based on the way everything else is going in Stellantis with the V8 powered stuff. Pentastar will probably still stick around too, but yeah, I think you're going to stick it out for another couple of years here with the Durango, and then 2026 is when you should see something new. And Michelle said, I did see a Saturn Relay and a 2-door Pontiac Grand Am also. Fun geeking out over cars that were once commonplace in my childhood. I'm right there with you. It's really fun. And every once in a while, I'll go back and watch one of my old home movies and see, what was parked on the street whenever I was running around the front yard as a 3-year-old in 1993. And, just kind of funny seeing the cars that were out there. It was, yeah, I mean, Grand Ams were a very common sight. Drunken Car Guy says, that reminds me, my aunt has a pretty pristine low mile Grand Am that she never drives. Wow. Well, I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens, beyond the Radwood crowd, but I'm curious to see if like a mint Grand Am ever does appreciate and, become this sought after thing. Because I mean, like we're talking about how we're getting excited about seeing them. And I would hope that would end up in someone paying, more than bargain prices for one someday, but I don't know if they'll ever be collectible. I guess we'll just have to see. But I certainly am starting to feel stronger nostalgia. I mean, I guess it's just human nature over the years for those vehicles of my childhood that, we all grew up seeing, and just, you romanticize that stuff. And it kind of is one of those things that, gets better with time just in your own mind, and, makes those things desirable again that, people didn't consider desirable, for years and years. But Rafi says this generation's been out for a while. Yeah. With the Durango. Yeah. It's been out longer than even most of the other Stellantis stuff. It's been a while, but they're reliable. They tow, which is something you can't say for most of the other vehicles in that segment. And Durango really has a good niche for itself, especially with the performance stuff over the years that no one else really offered. I think it really had some staying power there for sure. And Trent Carger says, for the record, last one I saw had 50K on it, and I think it's an 01. Wow. It's the last time you saw it. Yeah. That could be, I don't know if it'll be a gold mine anytime soon, but I feel like that could be desirable someday. Who knows? And B. Mitchell said, and that's why Radwood is so popular. Lots of folks your age are getting nostalgic. Yeah, I think so. And I'd love to go to a Radwood show. They have one like once a year here in Pittsburgh. And I think I'm really going to try and make an effort to go this year. Because I think I would actually get a pretty good kick out of it. And, yeah, it's a great idea. It's I guess it's again just targeted squarely at that demographic for sure. But Rafi says nostalgia is a strong emotion for sure, absolutely. But anyway, we've come up on 2 hours here, so it's been fun going on the nostalgia trip here with all of you, and it's been a great live stream as usual. But I have to sign off here, and but yeah, stay tuned. Some good stuff this week. Speaking of nostalgia, it's stay tuned for Wednesday's review. As long as everything goes according to plan here, I'll be reviewing something very fun earlier this week that is also rare and also really an interesting find. A car I've been wanting to review for a long time that I finally was able to track one down, and a really perfect example as well. So stay tuned for that. That'll be fun here on Wednesday, most likely. And so anyway, have a great week, everyone. Thanks so much for hanging out and joining in here. And see you guys in the next one. Take care.